right? So this week we have discussed about few of the important topics. First is in news was Gogabil Lake, okay, in Bihar. We have discussed already several times about the Ramsar Convention. Okay, so it has been included as 94th Ramsar sites. Okay, so that is the first thing. Now, as far as India is concerned, it is having the third highest number of Ramsar sites. Right, after UK, you have at first, then Mexico is at the second. Okay, so 94, and it is increasing at a very fast rate because in 2016 it was 45. So almost what you can say, in 9 years it has almost doubled as such, 45 to 94. So briefly, from mapping perspective, we have to understand here the Gogabil Lake we talk about is which kind of lake? Oxbow Lake. We have discussed that during the meandering of river, what happens? The loop gets cut off, and this cut off loop is where you have the stagnant water, and because of the shape, okay, why shape? Because if you look at the ox, hump of ox is having this shape. So Oxbow Lake it is called as, it is in the northern Bihar district, is called as Katihar. Okay, wetland ecosystem, part of which plain? Simple, Indo-Gangetic plain. That is where we have discussed all the rivers, okay, are flowing in a meandering loop as such. So Ramsar recognition, that is the first point we have to keep in mind. Okay, in the state of Bihar, 94th Ramsar site. Now it has lot of ecological characteristic and feature also, like significance also, because it is part of central eastern migration pathway as such. That means you have the birds originating means flying, starting their journey from Siberia in Russia, then they come to India, eastern part of India like Odisha, Bihar, okay, and all these regions, and then they fly all the way to Africa as such. So somewhere it lies in the pathway, right? Apart from that, because it is riverine ecosystem, okay, in the Ganga river, for example, what you will find? Dolphins, okay, are very well known. So Gangetic riverine biodiversity also you will find here. Apart from that, the most significant feature is it helps in regulation of what you can call as floods. Why? Because when heavy amount of rainfall is flowing through the rivers, what will happen? If nearby you have lakes, lakes keep on drying. Okay, imagine dry condition, what will happen? It is not getting any water. So in dry condition it will dry up, and it will have more volume and space to accommodate this excess flood water. That means the presence of such lakes help in also managing flood, we can say. Okay, so that is the ecological features as such. Ramsar criteria, several criteria, you have not gone to that, but overall on 3 criteria it has been included as a Ramsar site. Criteria number 2, criteria number 5, and criteria number 6 as such. In general, all the criteria point to single thing, either due to natural reasons or due to human factors. What is going on? Lake is degrading its capacity, lake is shrinking in area wise, lake is losing its ecological value as such. Why? Because lake is made up of water, and instead of water, suppose that a lot of you have invasive species, okay, that begins to grow. For example, you have water hyacinth, okay, it begins to grow, terra of Bengal it is called as. What will it do? It will completely reduce the area of lake, and also it will reduce the volume reservoir and all that, right? Water bird congregation also get affected because of the lake size shrink, number of water bird it can host will also decline as such, right? And that is why gradually what we can see, that what we have seen is that many of the species that were living along these lake areas, their IUCN status has changed to what status? Threatened status. Earlier they were non-threatened. Yeah, you would have read about IUCN status. Near threatened, then you have threatened, then you have the endangered, then you have critically endangered and all the extinct. Major species here you have Saras, okay, Saras crane you will find, lesser adjutant, okay, waterfowls. So lot of such species you have. Species name you can keep in mind. Okay, directly they are not asking these days question. Earlier they used to ask such kind of questions. Okay, that which of these species you will find in which part of India as such. But still you can keep this in mind. Overall, what is the threat? Because we know that due to threat it has been included in Ramsar list. What are the threat? Agricultural expansion, this is the biggest threat. All of these things are there, but biggest threat is agricultural expansion, because we know that it is fertile part of the plain as such. Lot of fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides are being used in this plain. When agriculture water is discharged, or when the flood happens, or when the monsoon rainfall happens, all these chemicals, harmful chemicals, are taken to which place? In the lake itself. These harmful chemicals, they will disturb the ecology and balance of lake as such. Many species that are present in this lake will start to die out and all. Plus you also will have eutrophication. Okay, whenever huge amount of fertilizers are entering the lake, it will produce what you can call as nutrient. Nutrient will lead to algal bloom. Algae will cover entire lake surface. Due to this, sunlight will not be available. Algae will also degrade. Okay, that will result into lack of oxygen in the water. So lack of sunlight, lack of oxygen. What will result in? Large scale death of the marine organism that is living in the lake. So encroachment is also going on because human habitation, population density is very high here. So they keep on encroaching upon this lake land. Pollution load is also higher. Same thing because of the agricultural pollution. Okay, so due to this hydrological changes and siltation, means more and more sediments we are seeing accumulating in this lake as such. Conservation measures. First of all, at community level, people have now begun to, Gram Panchayat will be involved here. So at Gram Panchayat level, what we are seeing, people are participating to ensure that wherever you have the lake being covered by the plants, they are trying to remove it as such. Okay, siltation, trying to de-silt the lake. De-silt the lake means they are trying to remove the overall sediment load and all that. Overall, anyway, we can say it is a kind of eco-sensitive zone, and the management of this lake currently is responsibility of Bihar State Wetland Authority as such, right? So monitoring, restoration initiative, all these things we are being seen done here as such. Okay, again, if you revise mapping, already discussed part of which basin? Gangetic basin. Okay, which kind of area? Katihar, Purnia. Okay, both cities you have nearby. Wetland cluster. Also, it is close to Nepal migration route, East Asian flyway. Okay, it is called as. So from Nepal to India, then further Bihar Ramsar network, Eastern India flyway corridor. That is the overall mapping. Then second is, recently was in news we have seen, related to Delhi Red Fort blast was ricin. Okay, a large amount of ricin was found by Gujarat anti-terrorism squad as such. Okay, so anti-terrorism squad. So several suspects have been detained who are believed to be participating in what? Suspected ricin plot as such. Okay, so let us try to understand this. So first of all, if you look at the ricin. Ricin basically is what a kind of toxic substance. Okay, toxic substance which is type of protein, we can say. How it is made? So you have castor seed. Castor seed you can easily find anywhere. Okay, it is cultivated also. So it is extracted from the castor plant seed. From castor seed largely for general purpose, what do you produce? Oil. So after you produce the oil, whatever residue is left, that residue is used to extract what? This ricin protein as such. Okay, so that is why we are calling it as what? Byproduct of castor oil production as such. That is the introduction about ricin. Now, first of all, ricin is found to be extremely toxic in nature, and it is not only toxic in certain way that if you take by ingestion or if you eat or consume only you will get this effect. It is toxic if you take it in any way. Any way means either it is injected or it is ingested, that means with food if you take it, or even if it is inhaled, because from ricin you can produce gas. The gas that will produce also will be toxic in nature. So that was the overall plan of this group as per the Gujarat ATS. They are planning to use large amount of ricin in densely populated areas as such. Okay, for example, in Delhi many sites we have seen were being reconnaissances where they have carried out, and they are planning to use in restaurant for example also. Okay, imagine a large restaurant which is producing large volume of food and a small amount of ricin, if it is mixed there, what will happen? Large number of people will be able to basically will be ingesting it and they will die as such. So inhalation. So blocks overall, what happens? How ricin affects you? We have discussed that ricin example of protein as such, and this protein then acts and block further protein synthesis in the human body as such. If protein synthesis is blocked, what we will observe? Senescence of cell. Senescence means cell death. Okay, we can say the required protein, amino acid that is required for the cell sustenance, it is no longer available as such. Cell death is what? Cell is making up your tissues. Tissues are making up your organs. Organs is what you are made up of. So cell death will cause tissue death. Tissue death will cause organ death. That means overall the death due to ricin is largely because of what problem? We can say it multiple organ failure, and at the same time liver, kidney, pancreas, everything will start to fail because of the buildup of the toxic substance such as ricin. Also it is very deadly because even if someone know that ricin you have ingested or you have inhaled ricin, there is no antidote available as such. And the second problem is that it's not that you need to consume very large amount of ricin and something like that. Even in very, very small doses, it can be very fatal and lethal. And that is why we are talking about the terrorists. They have begun to use such kind of biological, well, basically we can say it is nothing but example of which kind of tool? Biological tool of warfare as such. Okay, so chemical weapons, biological weapons. So that is what we have to understand. Security risk is simple. Why it is security risk? First of all, if there was some kind of toxin which is very difficult to procure, in that case the probability of terrorist group to have their hand over it will be minimal. Here I told you what it is produced from. Castor seed, which is very, very common, and in large areas of Western India you are growing castor seeds and all. So difficult to detect rapidly. High potential for misuse as a bioweapon, because I told you in any form it can be dangerous for people as such. So they can try to transmit it in the form of food, in form of smoke, okay, inhalation and all that. Overall, it has been used previously also in bioterror plots gradually as such. So this is not the first use. And earlier actually in the Indo-Vietnam war also similar kind of gas like sarin gas was used by US to wipe a large number of Vietnamese guerrilla fighters as such. Okay, so similar kind of thing we can see here also. Now at global scale, the major convention that restricts use of such weapon is called as Chemical Weapons Convention. So under Chemical Weapons Convention, this has been categorized as Schedule 1 chemical. Schedule 1 chemical is those chemicals which are considered as extremely dangerous, lethal and toxic in nature. So that means ricin is what? In terms of the threat, it is one of the most threatening biotoxic weapon that terrorists can use here. And that is why due to the extreme toxicity, control both in terms of production, in terms of the transportation, in terms of in trade and all that is highly prohibited, and especially for offensive purposes obviously it will be prohibited as such. If someone is found to be violating CWC, that is Chemical Weapons Convention, in that case UN can act and put sanctions on them. Such kind of use we have seen in Syria. Okay, UN alleged that in Syria during the time of Bashar al-Assad, what he did? He have used similar kind of gases, poisonous gases, to kill those people who opposed him in his own country. So that is why Syria was imposed with heavy sanctions, and even there was attempt to ouster the Bashar al-Assad regime by military intervention. We have seen security forces of US and other countries getting involved there. Right, Chemical Weapons Convention talk about simple. It is a global treaty that bans what you can call as chemical weapons development, stockpiling of chemical weapons, transfer of chemical weapons as well as use of chemical weapon. Ensures what? Verification and destruction of stockpiles. For example, Syria recently has seen a change of government. So when the recent president or current president of Syria went to US, what did both presidents discuss? One of the item on agenda was, as I told you, Assad was allegedly having stockpiles of chemical weapons. So US is saying that we will remove sanction on you, we will even give you fund for reconstruction development of the country, but what we would have to do? Destroy all the chemical weapons stockpile. So why? Because if it falls in the wrong hand, suppose Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all these terrorist organizations we have in the Middle East, if they get hand over these kind of chemical weapons, what they can do? They can cause a large scale terror, not only in Middle East but in every part of the world also. That is why this is very, very important. Overall, this entire convention, whether the country is following it or not, whether someone is violating it or not, is largely seen by which organization? This is important from prelims perspective. It is OPCW. Also in previous year prelims this question was asked, what does OPCW does? What does it do? Chemical Weapons Convention, it ensures that everyone is following and adhering to the norms and all. So Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapon, that is the name. India is a signatory. It ratified the convention in year 1996 itself. Implemented by a ratified means okay, Parliament has to pass the law so that this convention can be enforced in India. So it passed an act called as Chemical Weapons Convention Act of 2000, right? And then we have NACWC, National, okay, this enforcing authority it has developed, and also OPCW. As I told you, OPCW ensures that everyone is adhering to the CWC norm. How will it ensure? If they are given access inside the country. And if a country has ratified it, that means as per convention, it has to allow OPCW to inspect, carry out the inspection of facilities and all where chemical weapons can be this synthesized and all, and based on that they give the green signals and all that. So that is how the enforcement of Chemical Weapons Convention we are seeing here. Okay. Apart from that, again, what the reason we are talking about this? Because as we have discussed, Gujarat Anti-Terrorism Squad has arrested several individuals who were suspected to be participating in a ricin plot where they wanted to carry out attack, and it has emerged as a major biosecurity concern for entire India. Okay, that is the second point. Third is news related to the reserve of a mineral called as barite. Okay, barite is also referred as a strategic mineral as such because of its strategic significance. So, okay, barite basically it is a mineral of sulfate. Okay, SO3 we can call as. So sulfate mineral with high specific gravity. What kind of mineral? Obviously, it is non-metallic mineral as such. What kind of deposit are they found in? In economic geography, we will discuss about. Deposits are called as vein and lode deposit. Okay, that means suppose this is the surface, surface, and if you go further down below the ground, what will have? Large concentration of these minerals. But near the surface, they are found in which kind of structure? Veins kind of structure. They are not found uniformly everywhere. So if you want to extract this mineral, you have to dig along what? Dig along the veins only. Okay. So here you will have mineral, here you will have mineral, here you will have mineral, here you will find mineral. But in these areas, mineral concentration will be either very low, that is unviable to be extracted as such. Such kind of deposits are what we call as vein deposit or vein and lode deposit. Okay. So this is the lower part is called as lode, this core part, and the upper part is called as vein. So that is the kind of deposit in which we find the barite mineral as such. Okay. Overall, if you talk about India, total reserve as per 2015 data in India is believed to be how much? 49 million tons as such. Okay. In 2024, what is the reserve? This much. That means we can say that we have a depletion rate of 2 to 3 million tons per year. Production rate is given here. Mostly it is in Andhra Pradesh, okay, where you find this mineral reserve as such. Export also we are doing. How much export? 2.3. And that has raised a concern, because if you look at China, China is preserving and conserving this mineral. Why? So they can use it for domestic purposes as such, because this is very important strategic mineral. What India is doing? It is exporting it at very large amount. After some years, when you will have the decline in the barite, we will have to import it. And that time, because it is very strategic important minerals, it is quite possible countries would not be easily trading it with India, exporting it to India. And that time we will have problem as such. That is why the concern was raised that if you look at the data, India has only 4% of global deposit, but it exports 40% of total global barite as such. And that is why now what is the recommendation or suggestion? We should decrease the extraction of this mineral, and we should also do what? Put a kind of restrictions on the export of this mineral. So in future we will not have to face the shortages of such kind of critical strategic mineral as such, right? Where do you find this? As I discussed, in largely in the state of Andhra Pradesh, okay, such as Kadapa region, Mangampeta you have. Some amount you will find also where? In Rajasthan. Himachal also a minor pocket, but this is again unviable because it is hilly terrain. Mineral extraction becomes quite complicated and challenging here as such. That means largely we can say the easiest extraction we can do where? Andhra Pradesh region itself. Right? In global ranking, second largest that we have discussed already. So that is the major deposit here. Strategic importance because it can be used for various purposes. Okay, if you look at the data here, this is also from newspaper. If you look, Andhra Pradesh government raised nearly this much crore via bonds using this future barite revenue as security as such. Because of this, what happens? The state also has a kind of limitation on the flexibility that how much it can reduce mining, how much can change the export and all that, okay, because they are already trying to raise revenue from this. That means here, if you talk about, okay, these steps aim to secure essential mineral for India's energy needs. And India responded to China's export curve on rare earth magnet with a 16,300 crore national critical mineral mission as such. This is the reflection of what can happen in future. China already has put a ban on many such strategic minerals, not only for India, but even for US, UK and all that, right? And it is in this context, we know that barite demand of India, domestic demand itself is rising. So if we do not put certain restrictions and control on export, what will happen? In future, we will not be able to meet even our own demand as such, okay? And that is why we are talking about this entire topic. Now, this is very strategic mineral. Why? Because it has multi-dimensional uses, multi-sectoral uses we can say. Where it can be used in? Energy sector. What purposes? You have gas extraction of oil and gas from the well, okay, oil well, gas well. So there the control of pressure, prevent blowout. Prevent blowout means if suppose suddenly gas pressure increases, what will happen? You have a certain width of the pipe through which gas is coming. It can cause entire pipe to rupture as such. Why? Because pressure is very, very high. So to control the pressure, what do you use? Barite mineral. So you have oil extraction companies of India such as ONGC, private like Reliance Industries and all that. They are using it. It is also used in where? Defense industry. Why? For high density missile component production, radar shielding, counterweights. And this is where you have the most important use and critical for India in the future, because here we have different alternatives available. If in oil and gas industry barite no, then something else we can use. Okay. Here what do we have? No affordable substitute. That means the sector which will face biggest threat in future, challenge in future will be which sector? defense, and defense is one of the most important sector as such. Okay, that is the point. Medical sector also it is used in what? X-ray imaging and all that. Civilian use there, dual purpose technology it is also referred as. Then apart from that, paint, plastic, electronics used as filler and radiation shield. Again, what do we have? Industrial importance. So multi-sectoral use, but we have to keep in mind very vital for which sector? Defense sector, because alternative is not available. Okay, it is very costly even if it is available as such, and that is why the export has to be controlled, right? And this is not only that we are doing it, already other countries have done the same. Russia, if we talk about, they already have put what? Export restriction. Why? To ensure that domestic sector is given priority here, right? So resource nationalism is being used as a strategic tool. Resource nationalism means whatever resources a nation has, first it has to use it for what purposes? To protect its sovereignty, security, interest and all that, right? So resource nationalism. US, if we talk about, it has bauxite reserve, but what it is doing? Importing bauxite. So they believe that as long as it is available in the international market, let us import it. Once there is some deficiency, we will start using our own bauxite. That means what kind of approach they have taken? Long-term conservation strategy. This is also the lesson that we have to learn. Resource nationalism, long-term conservation strategy. Russia or Iran also what they are doing? Controlled extraction both for oil and defense industry. Iran and Russia talk about which industry is dominant there? Oil and gas industry. Bauxite is being used there. But still, despite this, what they are doing? Extraction of bauxite is taking place in controlled manner, okay, not in uncontrolled manner. Why? Because it is not only the minerals sectors, industrial sector and all that, they are trying to align mineral policy with strategic sector. What is strategic sector? Defense. So they believe that later on, if defense sector requires and there is a shortage in international market, still they will have enough domestic reserves to use it in the domestic market as such. So these are the three approaches that countries have taken, and that is why it is recommended that India should also learn from it. There are several challenges also, like illegal mining challenge. We have export underpricing. Okay, resource depletion is going on because we have discussed already in the beginning slide that we are consuming, right, exporting and also consuming it at a very rapid rate. So we have seen significant decline in last couple of years as such. Okay, and overall monopoly market control. The company that is involved is NMDC, is a major company that is involved here. So they can export and use whatever pricing they want to sell in the market as such. Okay, so that is the problem. Next topic is countering terrorism and international security framework. Simple, this is nothing but because we know that due to the Red Fort terror attack, terrorism has again come in news as such. Okay, and the link has been established with which organization? Al-Qaeda, Jaish-e-Mohammed, right, in case of Red Fort, right, Jaish-e-Mohammed. So because of this, terrorism again has become an important topic. Now, this is something you already have discussed in the static classes. It is a revision of the same. I told you, as far as terrorism is concerned, what we are facing. First is Pakistan sponsored or cross-border terrorism. Already explained, we have explained. This already we have discussed. Lone wolf attack, when a individual who is extremely radicalized, they are going and carrying out attack without being part or permanent member of any terrorist organization. So these attacks are called as lone wolf attack. Okay, so person goes, take a knife and start attacking in a metro, for example. Okay, start attacking in a crowded area as such, or a person takes a IED, okay, crude bomb also we can say, and blast where you have more than 1,000 people assemble. What will happen? Even if bomb is not very high intensity bomb, it can cause death of several dozen of individuals as such. Such kind of attack is called as lone wolf attack. Third, radicalization is also taking place at much more rapid level because of inability of or because of the availability of cyber space. Okay, so social media, YouTube, all these platforms that you have, and due to radicalization and terror financing. Terror financing, again we can remember, we have discussed about externally this aided internal threat. So Pakistan, China, nowadays Bangladesh also elements we have, organizations we have, they are trying to fund the terror agencies who are able to carry out attacks in India, within Indian territory. So same thing, emerging threat landscape we can discuss. Okay, institutions that is involved, already all of them we have discussed about. National Investigation Agency, that is a federal counter-terrorism agency designed after 26/11 attack. What is the power given to it which were not available to the other agencies before? It can go and investigate terror cases in a state without taking approval of the state government. So that is the thing. IB, you know, Intelligence Bureau, responsible for collecting and collecting raw intelligence, okay, synthesize it, collate it, and then try to understand the analysis, or try to basically analyze the threat, okay, terrorism related threat. Raw, that is for external, okay, this intelligence collection. So research analysis wing, National Technical Research Organization, that is to look at the technical aspect of the terrorism and other kind of threats as such, right? And then we have this also we have discussed, MAC, Multi-Agency Center. What is the role? To act as a conduit between the state government and central government. So IB deals with the MSE and collect data from different state as such, okay, information, intelligence and all that. So these are the intelligence institutions we have discussed. Legislation also we have talked about. What are the major legislation? Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, then NIA Act. I told you that largely the terror financing is through the use of black money. Black money is laundered to convert in the white money. So which act is responsible here to control those? Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2008. Then in case of state, we have discussed Maharashtra was the first state to bring a full-fledged legislation to control terrorism and organized crime. You also have discussed Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act as such. Plus nowadays, because UAVs, drones are being used also, okay, and that is why anti-drone rules we have brought. Actually, a few years back, you could easily have bought drone from Amazon if you want, okay, for your videography and everything like that. Now it is no longer possible, okay. So these are some of the stringent measures we have put in practice to control the terrorism. Mainly terrorism in India also comes from the border areas. Terrorists we talk about, like Pahalgam attack if we discuss, where they have come from, Pakistan. So we have to focus also on what? Management of border. So smart fencing, already with this we have discussed. Smart fencing means virtual fencing. You are using CCTV cameras, you are using radars, you are using underground sensors. So that is smart fencing. Plus at the same time we are also focused on deployment of the security forces. We have taken one border, one force approach. What is one border, one force? At any given international border, same forces will be continuously deployed. So BSF, Indo-Pakistan border, ITBP, Indo-Myanmar border, Assam Rifles, ITBP, Indo-China border, Assam Rifles, Indo-Myanmar border, right? So Shastra Seema Bal, Assam and, Nepal and Bhutan as such, right? That is the thing. So line of control, line of actual control, both we are monitoring as such. Coastal security network also we have devised where we have focused on 3-tiered security. Nearest to the coast, what will have? State, Marine, Police. Further, you will have Indian Coast Guard. Further, you will have Indian Navy. So 3-tiered security architecture we have put in place, especially after what? After the 26/11 attack as such, because it is for the first time we have seen terrorists not infiltrating India through land borders, but infiltrating through the, yes, okay, so sea route and all. Integrated check post that we have put in place at several places of the border itself. Okay, so ICP help in easy movement of genuine people, and at the same time traffickers, criminals, organized crime group members, terrorists can easily be nabbed, okay, and arrested. So that is the thing. Plus we know that today is the era of technology. So we are also trying to integrate technology in our fight against terrorism. Okay, this can be explained simply as what? Big data analytics. Earlier, a single individual or even a group of individuals could not analyze such a large volume of data. Okay, banking related information, financial information that you have, migration or immigration related information you have about certain individual, what kind of transaction he has participated in, right? So if you want to know whether the person is associated with terrorism, you need to have comprehensive understanding of all his information. Many times it used to take a lot of time to understand whether the person is threat or not. Now with the help of AI, what we can do? Analyze such huge data in a very short span of time, and thus it will make us easier to understand the threat a person poses toward a country, right, nation such. Surveillance by artificial intelligence we are using this year, UAV monitoring, signal intelligence, okay, we are using. And also many terrorists, when they buy something which they can use for suppose manufacturing of bomb, they are not buying it in open market generally, they are buying on what? Dark web. So we are also trying to look at the dark web to know that whether a large volume of certain explosive device, what you can call as material, raw material and all this have been collected or not as such. Okay, so recently we have discovered large volume of explosives. So to some extent what was used here? Dark web tracking. That is how you will track that where the person is staying, from which IP address such orders were given and all these kind of things. Okay, and that is how we were able to nab them from Haryana. So that is the thing. Internal prevention measures also we have put in place. Community policing, for example, that is we are seeing in the Indo-Myanmar border areas, where any illegal migrant, they are being reported to the local police by community effort. So anyone who is seen in the area who in the village they might have never seen before, okay, or anyone involved in suspicious activities. So they are reporting to police, so community policing. Counter radicalization, that is, I told you, Maharashtra has taken such effort through social media, through websites, through the Facebook and all that. People are trying to radicalize Indian this, what you can call as Indian this youth from sitting somewhere in Pakistan, Iran and Afghanistan and all that. So whenever such kind of things are reported, Maharashtra police focus on counter radicalization. Okay, they try to reduce the effect such kind of radicalization have on police. Intelligence fusion. Okay, then we have crisis management drill. Okay, many times joint exercises, terrorism exercises are being conducted by various security forces to ensure that they are fully prepared in case of any exigencies. Multi-agency coordination. Okay, you have NSG, IB, all of these state police we talk about, all of them are operating together as such. Last is related to the last this week itself, but this is called as Tropical Forest Forever Facility. We know that recently under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the COP 30th meeting occurred or took place where? The Belém region of Brazil. The goal was to ensure that at least $125 billion of funds are raised. Raised for what purposes? Conservation of which kind of forest? Tropical forest. So that is the overall objective. A fund has to be set up which will be used and utilized to incentivize, to basically to be granted to those countries which are in the tropical areas, which are having forest cover. They can use this fund to ensure that forest is not degraded as such. Okay, so conservation of forest is simply, we can say, largely is the attempt here. If you look at the broad features here, it is permanent fund, it will not lapse, okay, as such. Second, it is self-financing. Self-financing means continuously what will happen? Individuals, donors, private donors, countries will keep on adding funds here. Overall, how many countries will be this benefited from it? 74 countries, all the way from South America, Africa to Asia. We talk about that you have. Right. Tropical countries means which countries are tropical countries? Anyone who is between 23.5 degrees north to 23.5 degrees south as such. Okay, between Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. So all these countries will be beneficiary of this fund as such. So the focus of fund is to ensure that deforestation is discouraged. It is penalized. If a country is involved in deforestation, the grant or the amount of fund given to that country will be relatively lesser. The countries which are focused on keeping what? Old forest intact, they will be given larger sum of fund. That is how the fund is trying to incentivize forest conservation. Total we have discussed $125 billion. Now how this fund will be arranged? Out of $125 billion, $25 billion will come from governments plus philanthropic effort as such. $100 billion will come from directly private investor like Bill and Melinda Gates, we talk about foundation you have, right? So many such donors we have. For example, even you talk about this Warren Buffett, he donates large sum of money for climate change related effects and all that. So that we can see. Tata fund you have in India as such. Okay, so that is the thing. So investment in public and corporate bonds, how the funds will be given? See, suppose that 100 or let's suppose $10 billion of fund is collected in this Tropical Forest Forever Fund. It's not that this fund will be lying idle. The management or the group that is controlling it, what will they do? They will invest this fund. How? By buying bonds. Public means government bonds or the corporate bonds. What will they earn? Interest. 8-9% interest they will earn annually, for example. And this annual return which they will give, which they will get, it will also be given as what? Payouts to these tropical nations. So it is not only the $125 billion these countries will receive, but even the interest that is being earned on them, that also will be transferred to who? To these countries. So overall we can understand over a period of time, if actually we are able to arrange this fund of sum of money, countries will be getting much more higher volume of or value of fund as such, because interest also they are getting here. What is the significance of this fund? So global South leadership we are seeing finally coming into picture here as far as the forest finance is concerned here. Makes a standing forest more valuable than clear land. India you have the Campa. Campa means a country or industry. It can cause massive deforestation because they want to extract minerals from here. But at the same time they can give money and they will say that this money you can utilize to create forest patches elsewhere. Problem is everywhere what is going on? The forest land is under pressure because of irrigation, because of human settlement, because of industrialization, urbanization and all that. So this is not a very good way. Okay, it does not discourages the deforestation as such, but this practice will ensure what? that standing forests are something that is preferred by tropical countries if they want to receive more fund as such. And by doing this, it recognizes ecosystem services that is provided by forest. What is the significance of forest? It acts as a carbon storage. Okay, forests are basically huge reservoir of carbon. It also acts as a carbon sink, we can say, where it takes up the carbon dioxide from atmosphere, right, and put it inside. So climate regulation basically we can do, because CO2 concentration can decrease. And also inside the tropical forest, which is largely of evergreen nature, deciduous nature, what do you find? Large number of faunal diversity. So biodiversity automatically will get protected if you are protecting the forest. Like in Indonesia, you have rich, dense tropical forest, but because a large part of this forest is being converted into plantation land. Okay, people there want to do plantation of oil palm, for example. So what they are doing? They are mercilessly cutting the forest, not even cutting the forest, because cutting is extremely difficult, because the vegetation density is very high. So they burn the forest. Okay, burning is cost effective and can damage the entire patch of forest. Due to this, the only place in the world where you will find a species of ape, greater ape, called as orangutan. What we have seen in recent years, large number of orangutans have died. Okay, they have basically collapsed and burned along with the forest patches itself as such. Clear? So that is why protection of forest is not only protection of the plants, protection of trees, it is also the protection of large number of, we can say, right, you have the birds, you have the animals, okay, that are living here. What is the concern? Concern is, because I told you, the fund is trying to invest money in some bond as such. Now bond return is not guaranteed. Corporate bond, how much return it will give depend on how company performs. Tomorrow suppose economic crisis occurs, company collapses, it cannot generate revenue, what will happen? There will be reduction in the amount of, suppose that you have invested $100 billion. It is quite possible due to market crisis it can convert into 80 billion. So what you are doing? You are losing the fund that was largely given for conservation of forest. That means there is a risk. What kind of risk? Market volatility, up and downs that you see in the market. Plus, because of the focus on getting the funds from private donors, it can also weaken UNFCCC obligation. UNFCCC obligation directly put obligations on which kind of countries? Developed countries. They have to fund the developing countries. Why? Because they are, or they should share the burden. Why they should share the burden? They have reaped benefit from the earlier industrialization. So majority of greenhouse gas emission, carbon dioxide emission is not because of developing country, it is because of developed country. That is why the burden was shared on them. But now they will say that already so much private donors are giving fund as such. So what will happen? They will try to give less amount of money to developing countries. So that is the thing. Third is risk of greenwashing and voluntary loopholes. Countries can find some loopholes how to get more funds without actually taking the adequate protection measures as such. Risk of inequitable benefit sharing. How it will determine? So total, how many countries are here? 74 countries. So how much fund will receive by which country? It has to be very, very transparent, impartial in nature. So controlling that also becomes quite difficult, because it's not that all 74 countries are equally powerful in terms of economic power, or talks about diplomatic power or even military power. So it is possible that some of the countries who are leading members of this tropical nation, they will be able to take more fund, corner more fund for themselves, while weaker countries would not have that a strong voice. They will be left with little fund. So that is why we have to ensure that the distribution of fund happens in impartial and transparent manner, where everyone gets chance to get the fund based on the performance simply. Governance is unclear, same thing, that how you will cover the risk, and especially how will you integrate the indigenous community living in the forest area as such. Okay, tropical forest, again, location simple, we understand, between 23.5 degree north to 23.5 degrees south. Okay, that is a tropical zone, not equatorial, tropical zone. We have rainforest, Amazon, Congo, Southeast Asia, these are the major rainforest. In Amazon in South America, Congo basin you have in Africa, Southeast Asia, all the way from India, Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, you go to Sri Lanka, for example, okay, you go to Indonesia, you go to further Malaysia, Borneo Islands and all that. Major nations, big nations we talk about here, you have Brazil, Indonesia, India, DRC in terms of the forest area, right? So that is the tropical forest cover. Overall, the agenda is to strengthen the protection of forest by what we can do. Further, we can reform agricultural subsidies. Oil palm, why people are trying to bring so much area, forest area under oil palm? Because subsidy model favors profit making there. profit seeking there. So obviously if people feel that they can earn more profit, what will happen? They will not have any interest in conserving, preserving forest, because the immediate interest is increase the revenue, increase the income, and that is where this model comes, agriculture subsidy. Second, at the same time, we have focused on forest, right? It's right. We have focused on biodiversity, for example, but also in majority of the forest, who is living? Indigenous community, tribal communities are living. So we have not talked about their rights as such. To what extent their rights will be guaranteed and controlled, okay, or whether they should be faced with a problem of displacement or not, whether the fund that these countries will receive, will some portion of this fund will be used for the indigenous community for their welfare benefit or not. So these are some of the missing points, we can say, as far as this particular fund is concerned, okay, because indigenous community is at the receiving end of the stick all the time. Anything happens, they have to move away from their own area, right? Plus, to ensure that countries are able to report correct measurement on all this, okay. For example, country has reduced its forest percentage by 2%, but it is reporting that its forest cover has increased by 5%. That means there should be what? Verification mechanism, okay, because on the basis of this verification, you will be transferring fund to these countries. So for that, what you can use? Technical tool. You measure the satellite data from past couple of years, right? You use the monitoring of drone to see whether the forest is continuous in nature. Earlier it was like this kind of forest. Now whether we have the patches of burnt forest, deforested land and all that kind of thing. That is the thing. Link with the Paris Agreement also, because what is the goal of Paris Agreement? To ensure that temperature rise does not exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius, if not then at least 2 degrees Celsius. So this is possible if you are linking it to the deforestation, if afforestation or conservation of forest, because if you are cutting the forest, target will be difficult to maintain this achieve. Align Tropical Forest Forever Fund with the UNFCCC Finance for Fairness. What is the fairness? That is, the developed countries should take the burden for financing of developing countries, deforestation measures and all that. So that is the overall suggestions and recommendations that we can talk about. Last, again if you revise, what is the Tropical Forest Forever Facility? COP30 initiative in Belém, Brazil. COP30 meetings are very important. Direct questions and prelims are asked from here. So make sure that you go through them properly, right? Question is asked like first COP meeting, which country or which place did it occur? They can give in the form of statement. COP first summit occurred in the Brasilia in Brazil, true or false? Recent most COP summit occurred again in Brazil, true or false? So these are the points that are given. It does not mean that you have to go through all from COP 1 to COP 30, but last couple of one and few ones where you have important mechanism that has come out, right? So that is what you have to focus here. Okay, again US $125 billion fund, 74 nationals will be rewarded, and overall it is a permanent self-financing fund itself, right? That is the overall that is wrong. Now if we talk about the reason, okay, if you look at some of the questions, so reason that was often in news due to security concern, acts primarily, how do they act? How do they affect human body? Which one? C. Okay, we have discussed what it is causing. Protein synthesis is inhibited, okay, affected. Due to this, what happens? Required proteins, amino acid for the cells are not available. Cells die. That causes tissue death. That causes organ death. That causes multiple organ failure. That causes death of the individual also. So C, that is inhibiting ribosomal protein synthesis. Second, okay, we have is Tropical Forest Forever Facility, recently seen in news, primarily aims to do what? That is fund, provide permanent financing for tropical forest conservation. Okay, so many time question like this is asked. What is the objective? Or you will see this whenever you have the World Bank or United Nations or major agencies coming with some new kind of fund facility, in next year prelims question generally is asked related to it. So basic facts about this fund you have to keep in mind, and also to give you idea how you will prepare. For example, the best way of preparing is that go to the website. Suppose you come across some new initiative that is taken by United Nations, okay, especially environment conservation, biodiversity conservation we are talking about. Go to the website. In website you will find a section that is about us section. Whatever is written about us section becomes important for prelims examination. So go through them 2, 3, 4, 5 times such. Okay, like example we have discussed today about what you can call as UNFCCC. So how will you prepare about UNFCCC? You cannot, it is not better to go through like multiple sources and here and there and all that. Best way to prepare is go to the official website, go to the about us section, whatever is mentioned first, prepare those. All points should be clear to you. Then only extra information if you find, okay, from the current affair booklet or from newspapers and all, then you can keep on adding there, recent initiative for example and all that. But broadly for all of these, UNEP also you have to study about, United Nations Environment Program, United Nations Development Program, right, Conference of Parties 30 meeting. What is COP 30 outcome? Best way to prepare is go to COP 30, they will have website there, right, they will list out what they have done largely. So from there you can take the essential necessary data as such. Okay, so that is how we can understand here. Okay, importance wise, I think, yeah. So importance wise, if I say you, which is the most important topic of today, that is the TFFF. Very, very important from again which examination perspective only? Prelims. Mains they will not ask describe about TFFF and all that. In mains you can use this as a pointer if you have to talk about what? Steps taken or measures taken by countries to protect forest, okay, conserve forest or forestation and all that. But TFFF most important from prelims perspective. Then what was the topic? You have the ricin and terrorism. Both topics we have discussed, both are related, okay, kind of. So ricin and terrorism, these are again very important topic from which examination perspective? Mains, because you have a subject called as internal security challenges. So directly, indirectly, both way you can use the information that you have received from both of these topics as such, because ricin is or ricin used in example of bioterrorism. So question can be asked about the bioterrorism, right? And then in bioterrorism you can discuss about ricin, you can discuss about sarin, okay, you can discuss about the other gases and everything that is being used here. Okay, OPCW can be asked in prelims again, okay, chemical weapons convention based question you can ask. But TFFF, ricin, terrorism. Other question was Goga Bill, Oxbow Lake was news. Why? Because it has been included as 94th Ramsar site. Ramsar site is always important for UPSC. They have asked multiple time questions, prelims examination, mains examination. So very, very important. Not only this topic of Goga Bill, but overall general idea about Ramsar Convention you need to have. So go through them in extreme detail. So that is about the Goga Bill. What was the other topic? Okay, barite reserve. So barite reserve again, because in the geography you have to look at the resources, their distribution, and especially those resources which are making the news headlines. So about them also you have to discuss. From prelims perspective, what you will study? Distribution. Okay, mains perspective, how and why it is significant for us, what are the issues, challenges, problems that we are facing and all. So that is what we can study as far as these 5 topics are concerned. Clear? Okay, so that is about these 5 topics of this particular week.